Afternoon, YouTube. Welcome to a little bit of paradise. Why do I say that? We got power back, and you would not believe how nice it is to have power back, especially when you haven't had power back. I think it took with it about 25-30 minutes of having power. The wife was already in the hot shower. She doesn't mind the cold ones, but I tell you what, she really likes the warm ones. The kids all took warm showers. I waited for mine for a little bit because I want to make sure I plugged in things. But, you know, when you got power and you might lose power because the grid's still trying to stabilize itself out. If somebody's got an issue where a power pole doesn't sit right, you lose that power again, everybody gets devastated. So, first thing I did was plug in all of the battery chargers that I've got, the battery ports I've got. Anything that has a battery, it's been plugged in. It's been charged. Just in case, because I know we're not out of the season. But wanted to talk today about other little things that I noticed that would be beneficial. So, there's a saying in the military that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. What does that mean? Well, let's take a critical item. Doesn't matter what it is. We can go with my truck, for example. So I have a truck. I have a good working vehicle. It's in good shape. I keep good maintenance on it. Life is good, right? Having that one vehicle is a huge deal, especially whenever the world is kind of crazy or you've got things going on. It's even better when my truck, being a older model diesel, has sheer power to pull things up. And it have a significantly high ground clearance. So if I'm going over things, debris, most of it was tree debris, I had very, very good confidence that my stuff would be taken care of. But I have one. What would have happened if I had been one of the unfortunate folks, and I've got pictures of them, where I took a tree smack dab in the middle of that in my truck? Now, if it hit the truck bed, it would have busted up the cap that I've got on there. Probably, depending on the size of the tree, might have been okay, because I keep kind of the big trees around my house cut down, or we don't have any. But what would have happened if I had done that? Well, if we follow the model or the adage 2 is 1, 1 is none, I have 2 vehicles. I have a second vehicle. It's my wife's car. Not nearly as powerful, not nearly as bad on gas, not nearly as comfy, can't pack as much stuff in it, but you know what? We've got another vehicle. Awesome, right? So now if I have to evac my happy ass out of here, I'm good to go. Can't take as much stuff, but you know what? The most important things, my family, the dog, the chickens, they may not make it. But everybody else, they got a seat. Let's go. Now let's take it forward to some of the other stuff. For cooking, how many things do you have to cook on? Well, a lot of people in my neighborhood only use their stove, their oven. Never used anything else. Don't have a grill, don't have anything else to go off of. So when the power gets cut and all their food's starting to spoil, they just have to suck it up. I tried to cook some of it for them before I got home, but unfortunately, as I said, we got home late on Saturday, so some of their stuff was already gone. We had some stuff that was starting to get to the point where it was like, hey, it needs to be cooked or tossed. So it was starting to thaw out, and I said, you know what, throw it on the grill, let's cook it. Now, I made mistakes too. So I've got a portable camping grill that I've had for, 12, 13 years. Never used it. Never even took it out of the box. I'm military. We move all the damn time. So I had never assembled it before. I had the fuel for it, which is smart. But I didn't know how long it was going to last. I had four fuel canisters that were full and 2 that were partials. Got them from the person I got the grill from. So I'm cooking on a fuel system that I've never built before, so guess what? My son and I were like, well, we're going to go build a grill. So now I've got a propane stove. Awesome. Makes sense. Good to have it. But I also have a fire pit. Really good. Has a grill that goes on top. Sweet. What about firewood? Well, I had some on hand, but what happens whenever you have a hurricane? Shit gets waterlogged. And for those of you who've never tried to start a fire with a freshly downed tree, it doesn't work too well. Why? Because the tree has water in it. It'll either smoke to high heaven or it won't cook, or both. And then you're wasting all of your resources trying to get that darn thing to go, and it doesn't go. Oops. Oversight. Guess what I also didn't have? Charcoal. I could put that into a grill fire pit. It's an open fire pit, and it's about 4 foot across. It's got a grill I can put on top of it. It can be lowered up and down so that I can cook meat to certain temperatures. So I had some fuel for it, but I didn't have any charcoal for it. Charcoal is great. Charcoal's fantastic. You know how you can cook bread in a Dutch oven? If you don't know how to cook bread in a Dutch oven, I know how to do it in theory, but guess who's going to practice it more? You can't use what you don't have. Another fun resource that I like to use is a lot of folks specifically did not have a survival type meals. Now, I am not hawking on, My Patriot Supply or whoever else does the Ready Wise. Some of those folks, they're decent meals. I've had them before. But they're expensive. And so is my preferred, and so is my family's preferred, which is Mountain House. So if you've never had Mountain House meals or Peak Ready meals, Ready Wise meals, they're basically freeze-dried food, freeze-dried meals that you can have that are, all you do is you add boiling water. That's it. Well, it's great. How do you boil water? Well, you start a fire. What happens if you don't have fire? Or a cook stove? Or a camp stove? Uh-oh. So, one of my favorite tricks is that there's those little they call them isobutane. They're little fuel canisters, about yay big, about 2-3 inches big, cylindrical, and you can use a jet boil. Well, jet boil is the name of the company that I've used a lot. I've used them multiple times overseas in Iraq. I used them in Europe, all throughout Europe, when I was doing Army stuff there. Phenomenal resource to have. But you got to have the fuel containers. And jet boil, the other thing too, is that it comes in its own container and it screws onto the top, and it has its own, the one I have has its own igniter. That's awesome. Works great. But you don't have to spend that much money for it if you don't want to. I recently did a shooting competition with a buddy of mine, and we were trying to cut weight. So the whole competition was, how do you cut weight? Or you got to ruck with a whole bunch of weight on your back. So for those who aren't familiar with rucking, throw on a huge backpack, rifle, ammo, all the food you need, gas, sleeping stuff, everything. That's all got to fit in your pack, and you got to take it with you. I think we ended up walking close to 40 miles in 3 days for time, and then shooting in between the mileage. So how do you cut weight? Well, you can get these little tiny adapters that will screw on to an isobutane container that will then allow you to get a flame, and then you take a either titanium or stainless steel cup, fill it full of water, boil the water, gets it hot, you're good to go. I have a Stanley one that has two plastic cups on the inside, as well as the stainless steel cup on the outside. Sorry, I'm trying to help people out in traffic, and people are jerks. Anyway, so I have a Stanley cup, and you can boil that water whenever you want it. And when it is pissing down rain, it is 35 degrees, and you can have a hot cup of coffee or tea. Whew, let me tell you, the morale that you have. So I had one of those available. I have multiple ones of those. I have one in my truck right now. I've got a couple at the house. They're not that expensive. And they'll last, let's see, I still am on the first fuel canister, and we used it at least 2-3 times a day, every day, to boil cups of water. So that was great. So now I've had multiple different sources on how I do fuel, or how I can cook food. And it's based off my situation. Now take that same concept and apply it across. So again, I'm going to go to military acronyms because it's what I'm familiar with, but you'll see where I'm going with it. Usually for communications, the military goes off what they call PACE. Primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. Sometimes you hear PACE plus. So it means, what's my primary? So my primary for cooking for the last several days has been the jet boil. Why? It's quick, it's easy. I can throw a Mountain House food, boil a cup or two of water, put it in there, stir it 5 minutes later, let it sit for another 10 minutes, and it's good to go. And the kids love them. They actually taste really darn good. Downside to them, they're expensive. Last I priced them out, they're somewhere between $9 and $10 a meal, a pouch. And they're like, oh yeah, it has 2 servings or 2.5 servings. I can tell you from a fact, from the time when I started buying these right around the COVID-19 time frame to now, they have absolutely gone through some shrinkflation. So their 2 servings is what used to be a 1 serving, and so on and so forth. You're picking up my drift. But they are really freaking handy to have. But let's go back to, so my primary was to jet boil, or to boil water on a little isobutane stove. My secondary was my big gas stove, which was better for cooking things like the steaks that we had that went bad or going bad, the burger that was starting to thaw out, all those kind of things. So all of those kind of things, I could put things in there, and that'll bring me to another point. So for those of you who don't cook on open flame, which is fun, what kind of pots and pans are you using? You're not, huh? You don't know what to use or what you might have. That's interesting. I would argue that most folks don't have the correct stuff to cook on an open fire or open flame. If you have not invested into a good cast iron skillet, you are missing out, my friend. Because, again, you can cook over an open flame, you can cook them on your electric stove cooktop. They cook evenly. They can be kind of a pain to learn how to use originally or use initially and get that good seasoning on there. So they become a lot more non-stick, but after that, you're good to go. Sorry, I'm trying to park the car, or park the truck, so y'all get, this is the video quality you pay for, right? And I won't waste time in editing because I think you'll get the gist, and I think the value's in the message, not necessarily in the delivery, right? Yeah. I'm not going to hit anything. Says the guy who's going to hit something. Anyway, so my primary, alternate, what was my contingency? Well, I had some fuel for the fire that I could do on the fire pit, and then there's plenty of dead branches and sticks that my kids play with. Yep, hit the curb, see? Plenty of fuel, dead sticks, things like that they can do. Good to go. Emergency, I didn't have one. All right, that's scary. How about flashlights? How many people had flashlights for this emergency? I have a headlamp. I'm a huge believer in headlamps, specifically if you can find ones with red lights. Military folks use them a lot because white light you can see for miles away. I can spot a white light in the middle of the dark. Whew. You might as well put a big beacon on it, say kill me or shoot here or there's somebody over here. Red light, a lot harder to see and doesn't screw up your night vision as bad. So you turn it on, see what you need to find, turn it off, and you can still see in the dark. Whereas you turn on a white light, you have to do that, like kind of hold on, wait for 5 minutes, cover my eyes, shit like that. I had multiple different flashlights. Every single member of my family had a flashlight. Every single one, 3 of us found had our headlamps. All of my kids have emergency bags. I have backup emergency bags for their bags. Now, I'm kind of a bag snob, if you will. But we all had emergency bags just in case we needed to get out of Dodge. I mean, we don't live in a neighborhood that has gas power, but several of my friends do. So that imagine you're at home, you have no power, limited fuel, and now you got to leave because you got a gas leak. Somebody turned the gas on. You know, little things. Other things. So for the 2 is 1, 1 is none. It definitely takes effect. My solar generator, that was a huge gap. I've already talked about it before. Huge gap. Why? I had one with 1 panel. I had a smaller panel, but it was only like a 10-watt one, so we're talking might have got me an extra 6 watts per hour. So not enough to sustain what I needed. So what now? That's why when I was able to get the solar setup I've got now, which I'll probably go a little bit more in depth on later, I ended up getting 4 200-watt panels. One, so I could run them in series. So it makes it a lot more efficient, and it also doesn't screw up the battery. And 2, I now have redundancy, because if I break one, I can still run 2 200-watt panels in series, or I can run 300 watts panels in parallel without screwing it up. So great asset to have. So I guess what I'm getting to is, if you start looking at some of the critical items that you have, what is it that you have one of that if this one thing breaks, everything else is going to really suffer? Like, we have a big Berkey water system in our house. We've had it since before COVID, because we lived out in the middle of the Mojave Desert. For there, the water was a big deal, but the water on the installation I was at tasted like bleach. It tastes chlorinated. So we got a filtration system. Why? Well, it tasted bad, and if we need water, guess what? This thing will help process. I know they've been through a few things. I have had 0 ill effects from drinking some really questionable water through it, so I'm going to go with it. So that said, everything else is going really good. Anyway, food for thought. We'll come back at you later, but since I might have to go to work here in the next couple days, because, we're kind of getting to somewhat of a level of normal, I need to get my ears lowered and eventually shave this beard, which is the best I can grow for 7 days. Not saying a whole lot. Anyway, stay safe, y'all. Take care.